Amid the swirling colors and lights of the Festival of Lights, the central market streets of Bregan were alive with a chaotic symphony of laughter, music, and the crackle of oil lamps. Ribbons of silk draped across the wooden stalls, glowing in hues of crimson and gold under the flickering flames. Vendors hawked spiced meats, glittering trinkets, and steaming mugs of mulled wine, while crowds of humans and the occasional orc pushed through the throng, their voices blending into a merry roar. It was the one time of year when the city's divisions seemed to blur, when old grudges between species were set aside for feasting and revelry. But for me, Edric, a 22-year-old son of a poor blacksmith, it was just another night of scraping by in a world that rarely noticed people like me. I lived on the fringes of Bregan, in a cramped attic above my father's old forge, now shuttered since his passing 2 winters ago. I made ends meet with odd jobs, mending tools for farmers, delivering parcels for merchants, or hauling crates at the docks. I wasn't tall or broad like the warriors who paraded through the streets, nor did I have the silver tongue of the traders. My hands were calloused from labor, my clothes patched and faded, and my dreams were small, a steady roof over my head, perhaps a workshop of my own one day. Romance? That was a luxury for those with coin and confidence. Yet here I was, stepping into the crowded tavern called the Ember Hearth, dressed in my best woolen cloak, threadbare but clean, for a blind date arranged by a couple of well-meaning friends from the docks. It was my 3rd attempt this year, each one ending in polite rejection or awkward silence. Why bother? Because loneliness has a way of gnawing at you, especially in a city where everyone else seemed paired off. The tavern was packed, the air thick with the scent of roasted venison, ale, and pipe smoke. Lanterns hung from the rafters, casting warm shadows over the wooden beams and the mix of patrons. Humans in their festival finery, a few orcs nursing tankards in the corners. I spotted her immediately at the corner table, a young human woman with golden hair pinned up elegantly, her dress embroidered with silver threads that screamed old money. Her name was Alara, or so my friends had said. She smiled as I approached, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes, polite, assessing. We exchanged pleasantries. I sat down, my heart pounding like a hammer on an anvil. "I'm Edric," I said, trying to sound casual. "I work around the markets, fixing things mostly." She nodded, her gaze flicking over my simple attire, my unkempt hair, my scuffed boots. We talked, or rather, she asked questions and I answered. About my family, just me now, my work, nothing glamorous, my ambitions, vague hopes of reopening the forge. Her responses grew shorter, her smiles thinner. Finally, after what felt like an eternity but was probably only half an hour, she set down her untouched glass of wine. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice cool and final. "You're not what I'm looking for." No explanation, no softening blow. She stood, smoothed her dress, and walked away, weaving through the crowd without a backward glance. The words hit like a splash of cold water. I stared at my half-empty mug, the ale suddenly bitter on my tongue. Not what she's looking for, of course not. I wasn't rich, wasn't connected, wasn't anything special, just Edric, the nobody from the back alleys. The familiar ache settled in my chest, the one that whispered I'd always be left behind, always the one people glanced over and dismissed. Around me, the festival cheer felt mocking. Couples laughing, friends toasting, lives intertwining while mine remained stubbornly alone. I was about to stand and slink out into the night when a deep, resonant voice cut through the din from the table beside mine. "Could you be my mate?" I turned, startled, half expecting a joke from a drunken patron, but there she was. An orc woman, towering even while seated, her frame broad and powerful like a statue carved from emerald stone. Her skin was a deep green, marked with faint scars that spoke of battles long past. Long black hair was braided tightly in the warrior style, adorned with a single bone bead. She wore a dark leather tunic reinforced with iron studs, practical and unadorned, and her golden eyes met mine without flinching. Tired, perhaps, but unflinching. She wasn't young, like Alara. She looked to be in her early 30s, with the quiet authority of someone who'd seen too much. I blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" She leaned forward slightly, her voice steady and unapologetic. "I heard your conversation, all of it. You're alone. So am I." Could you be my mate? Laughter bubbled up in my throat, nervous and disbelieving. Was this some festival prank? Orcs and humans mingled in Bregan, sure. Trade kept the peace after the old wars, but marriages? They were rare, whispered about in taverns as scandals or disasters. You're joking, right? We don't even know each other. She shook her head, her tusks catching the lantern light. I'm serious. My name is Maruk, chieftain of the Brownstone clan. I inherited the title after my father's death in a hunt last season. And you're Edric, the one who fixes things and dreams small. I like that. No pretense. Her directness floored me. The tavern noise faded into the background as I stared at her. This orc, a chieftain no less, with her clan holdings on the city's outskirts, lands rich in stone quarries and hunting grounds, was proposing to me? Me, the rejected nobody. Why me? You don't know anything about me. Marik's eyes softened just a fraction. Because you're honest, and because I think we both know what it's like to be overlooked. Sit with me. Let's talk. I hesitated, my mind racing. The festival lights danced outside the window, a reminder of the world moving on without me. What did I have to lose? Slowly I pulled out the chair across from her and sat. In that moment, amid the chaos of the night, my life had taken an impossible turn, one sparked by rejection and sealed by the most unexpected proposal I'd ever imagined. After that bewildering proposal in the ember hearth, I didn't bolt for the door as my instincts screamed. Instead, I found myself sliding into the seat across from Maruk, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and curiosity. The tavern's noise, clinking mugs, boisterous laughter, the strum of a lute in the corner, seemed to fade as she signaled the barkeep for another round. 2 steaming bowls of garlic-infused stew arrived, thick with chunks of root vegetables and wild boar, accompanied by slabs of dense rye bread. The scent was earthy and spicy, a far cry from the bland porridge I usually scrape together at home. Maruk tore into her portion without ceremony, her tusks flashing as she chewed, but her eyes never left mine. Why me? I asked again, poking at my stew with a wooden spoon. You could have any orc warrior from your clan, or even a human lord if you wanted alliances. I'm nothing. A fixer of broken carts and leaky roofs. She swallowed a mouthful and leaned back, her massive frame making the bench creak. That's exactly why. My clan has been pressuring me for 3 moons now to take a mate. Strengthen the bloodline, secure alliances, all that rot. The suitors come, strong orcs with battle scars and boasts of conquests. But they see only the chieftain's seat, the quarries my father left, the warriors I command. They don't see me. Her voice dropped, carrying a weariness that belied her imposing stature. And I can't give them what they truly want. I can't bear children. The shaman confirmed it years ago after a wound from a raid that never healed right. It's no secret in the clan. They whisper about it, pity me behind my back. I don't want a mate who'll resent me for it, who'll leave when the truth sinks in. I stared at her, the weight of her confession settling over me like a heavy cloak. Here was this powerful orc chieftain, ruler of the Brownstone clan, known for their sturdy fortresses on the rocky hills outside Bregan, laying bare her vulnerabilities to a stranger. It was disarming, almost painfully honest. I'm sorry, I murmured. That sounds lonely. It is, she admitted, her golden eyes flickering with something raw. And from what I overheard, you're lonely too. Rejected for not being enough. I don't need a hero or a conqueror, Edric. I need someone real, someone who won't pretend. We talked through the night, the festival lanterns outside dimming as patrons trickled out. I shared more than I'd intended, about my father's death from a forge accident, leaving me to fend for myself, about the endless string of odd jobs that barely kept me fed, about the quiet ache of watching others build lives while I patched holes in mine. Marek listened intently, nodding occasionally. She spoke of her own burdens, taking the chieftain's mantle after her father's fatal hunt, navigating clan politics where every decision was scrutinized, the constant pressure to appear unbreakable. Orcs value strength, she said, "but strength isn't just swinging an axe, it's enduring the quiet nights when doubt creeps in." By the time the barkeep shoot us out at dawn, we'd struck an agreement. No rushed wedding, no binding oaths. We'd meet, learn about each other, bridge the gaps between our worlds. If it didn't work, we'd part without resentment. "I have nothing to offer you," I warned her as we stepped into the crisp morning air, the streets littered with festival remnants. Marik's lips curved in a faint smile. "That's the point. No expectations. Meet me at the clan's gates in 3 days." Those 3 days blurred in a haze of doubt and anticipation. My friends at the docks laughed when I mentioned the encounter, dismissing it as a drunken Orc's jest. "Stay away from those greenskins," one warned. "They're trouble." But I couldn't shake Marik's words. On the appointed day, I trudged to the outskirts of Bregan, where the cobblestone roads gave way to rugged paths leading to the brownstone hills. The clan's fortress loomed ahead, a squat structure of gray stone flanked by watchtowers and guarded by orcs in leather armor, their axes gleaming. They eyed me suspiciously as I approached, but Marik emerged from the gates, waving them off. "Come," she said simply, leading me inside. The compound was a world apart from Bregan's bustling markets, communal halls with roaring fire pits, forges hammering out weapons, children roughhousing under the watchful eyes of elders. Marik showed me her quarters, a modest chamber with fur rugs, a stone hearth, and shelves lined with trophies from hunts. We shared a meal of roasted game and fermented berries, talking easily about trivial things, favorite foods. Hers was smoked venison, mine simple oat porridge. Childhood memories. She'd trained with a spear at age 10. I'd hammered nails in my father's shop. It felt strange, this orc chieftain treating me as an equal, but there was no pressure, no judgment. In return, I invited her to my humble lodgings a week later. My attic room was cramped. With a leaky roof, I'd patched myself in a single window overlooking the alley. Marik had to duck to enter, her presence filling the space like a storm cloud. She sat awkwardly on my stool, her knees nearly touching her chest, while I brewed tea over a small brazier. "This is how humans live?" she asked, not mocking, but genuinely curious. "Some of us," I replied, handing her a chipped mug. We talked late again, about the prejudices that lingered between our kinds, the old wars that scarred both sides. She confessed the isolation of leadership. I admitted my fear of forever being invisible. Light conflicts arose. Her clanmates grumbled about the weak human visiting. My neighbors whispered about consorting with orcs. But those meetings built a fragile bridge. Marik's straightforwardness cut through my insecurities, and my quiet listening gave her space to drop her chieftain's mask. It wasn't love, not yet. It was two outcasts finding solace in shared honesty, a pact born from rejection rather than romance. But as weeks turned to moons, I found myself looking forward to our encounters, the way her presence chased away the emptiness. Little did I know the real tests were just beginning, as the chasms between our worlds threatened to pull us apart. As the weeks blurred into months, my meetings with Marik evolved from tentative conversations into something deeper, a rhythm that began to feel almost natural, despite the chasms between our worlds. I found myself trekking to the brownstone fortress more often, the rocky paths becoming familiar under my boots. The first few visits were awkward, guarded by suspicious orcs who grunted at my approach, their axes slung over shoulders like casual threats. But Marik always met me at the gates, her presence a shield against their stares. "Ignore them," she'd say, leading me into the heart of the compound where the air smelled of smoke from the communal fires and the clang of hammers echoed from the clan's forges. Life there was a stark contrast to Bregan's crowded streets. The orcs lived communally, with long halls where warriors shared meals of roasted meats skewered on iron spits, washed down with potent ale that burned like fire in my throat. I joined their gatherings tentatively at first, sitting on rough-hewn benches, while Marik introduced me as Edric, the human who listens. They'd challenge me to their games, wrestling matches where I'd be hoisted off my feet in seconds by opponents twice my size, or axe-throwing contests where my throws wobbled pathetically. Laughter would erupt, not always kind, and I'd brush it off with a forced grin, but inside, the humiliation stung. "You're not built for this," one burly orc named Grimgor sneered once, his tusks bared in a mocking smile. Merrick silenced him with a glare, but the words lingered, feeding the doubt that had taken root in my mind. Yet, amid the discomfort, there were moments of connection. Marek would pull me aside after such evenings, her hand firm on my shoulder. "They test you because they fear change," she'd explain. "My clan has traded with humans for years, but trusting one, that's new." I'd nod, absorbing her world, the rituals of honoring ancestors with carved stones, the hunts where she'd return bloodied but triumphant, sharing tales of tracking beasts through the hills. In return, she'd visit my attic room in Bregan, stooping under the low beams that forced her to hunch like a giant in a dollhouse. Those nights were quieter, more intimate. I'd light the brazier and cook simple meals. Bean soup simmered with herbs I'd bartered for at the market, or flat bread baked on a hot stone. Marek would sit cross-legged on the floor, her massive frame making the space feel even smaller, and watch me work with a curiosity that surprised me. One evening, as rain pattered against the window, she helped me patch a tear in my old boots, her large fingers surprisingly deft with the needle. "My father taught me to mend my own gear," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of memory. "He died too soon, leaving me to lead alone. The elders expect me to be unbreakable. But some nights, I feel the cracks." I paused in my stirring, meeting her eyes. "I know that feeling. My father was the same, strong until the end, but he left me with nothing but debts and doubts. I want to reopen his forge, make something of myself, but every day feels like I'm just surviving." We shared dreams then. Hers of forging lasting peace between her clan and Bregan's humans, mine of a life where I wasn't defined by my poverty. Those conversations wove a thread between us, slow and tentative, like vines creeping over stone. Affection grew in small gestures. Marek gifted me a dagger she'd forged herself, its blade etched with orc runes for protection. "For when you're out in the markets," she said gruffly, avoiding my gaze. In return, I sewed her a woolen cloak lined with fur scraps I'd scavenged, tailored to her broad shoulders. "To keep the chill out during your hunts," I told her, and her rare smile, warm and unguarded, made my chest tighten in a way I hadn't expected. It wasn't the fiery passion of tavern tales, it was quieter, built on mutual respect and the shared relief of not having to pretend. But the cracks in our budding bond widened as the differences between us became impossible to ignore. The turning point came during a grand feast in the brownstone hall celebrating a successful quarry haul. The long tables groaned under platters of wild boar and fermented fruits, and the air thrummed with orc chants and drumming. Marek sat at the head, her chieftain's torque gleaming around her neck, and I was placed beside her, a position that drew murmurs from the elders. As the night wore on, ale flowing freely, one grizzled advisor named Elder Thorn rose, his voice booming. "Chieftain Marek, your leadership honors us, but this human pet? A weakling with no clan, no strength? Is he climbing our ranks for scraps? We need a mate worthy of Brownstone, not some street rat leeching off your pity." The hall fell silent, all eyes on me. Heat rushed to my face, a mix of shame and anger. I stood, my chair scraping loudly. "I'm no leech," I snapped, my voice trembling. "I came here because Marek invited me, not for your stones or status." But the damage was done. Whispers spread like wildfire. "The soft, human, unworthy of her—" Marek slammed her fist on the table, silencing them. "Edric is my guest. Disrespect him and you disrespect me." The elders backed down, but the seed of doubt had been planted. That night, as we walked the fortress walls under the stars, the argument erupted. "They're right," I said bitterly. "I'm a joke here, a poor human boy playing at being something more. Maybe I don't belong in your world." Marek whirled on me, her eyes flashing. "You think I chose you because you're weak? I chose you because you don't force me to be the unbreakable chieftain all the time, because with you I can just be." Her words hung heavy, but they couldn't erase the sting. The gap between us, her as a powerful leader, me as a struggling laborer, felt insurmountable. Pressure mounted from both sides. My human friends warned me orcs were volatile, urging me to end it before I got hurt. Merrick's clan pushed her toward orc suitors, whispering that a human mate would weaken her rule. I began pulling away, making excuses to skip visits. Doubts gnawed at me. Was this real, or just a temporary balm for our loneliness? The affection we'd built felt fragile, threatened by the world's judgments. As days turned colder, I wondered if our agreement had been a mistake, if the fear of not being enough would drive us apart for good. The days following that disastrous feast blurred into a fog of self-doubt and isolation. I avoided the paths to the brownstone hills, burying myself in work at the docks, hauling crates until my muscles screamed, repairing broken wagon wheels for merchants who barely noticed me. Each evening, I'd return to my attic room, the silence mocking me as I stared at the patched ceiling. Merrick's face haunted my thoughts. Her fierce defense of me in the hall, the way her eyes had softened in our quiet moments. But the elder's words echoed louder, weakling, unworthy, and they twisted into a conviction that I was dragging her down. A chieftain like her deserved better than a poor human boy with nothing to his name. Our agreement had been honest, but honesty couldn't bridge the gulf between us. Finally, after a week of torment, I sat at my rickety table under the dim light of a single candle and penned a letter. My hand shook as I wrote. Marek, I've thought long on our time together. You've given me more than I deserve, a glimpse of something real, but I see now that I'm a burden to you and your clan. The whispers, the judgments, they're right. I can't stand by while my presence weakens your rule. Let's end this before it costs you more. With respect, Edric. I sealed it with a blob of wax from the candle, my heart heavy as lead. The next morning, I paid a messenger boy a copper to deliver it to the fortress gates. Then I waited for the axe to fall, for a curt reply, or perhaps nothing at all. Nothing came. Days stretched into a void. I threw myself into more jobs, mending nets for fishermen by the river, where the water's rush drowned out my regrets. But at night, sleep evaded me. Dreams plagued my rest. Visions of Alara walking away in the tavern multiplied by the orcs' sneers, all culminating in Marek turning her back on me, her golden eyes cold. I'd wake in a sweat, the attic's chill seeping into my bones, wondering if I'd made the right choice. Was this freedom, or just another form of abandonment? The loneliness I'd known before her returned tenfold, sharper now that I'd tasted companionship. Friends at the docks noticed my gloom but offered only shrugs and ale. Orcs are trouble anyway, one said. You're better off. But I wasn't. The dagger she'd given me lay unused on my shelf, a silent accusation. A fortnight passed in this limbo, the autumn winds turning crisp and biting. I began to believe it was truly over, that Marek had accepted my withdrawal, perhaps even with relief. The thought stung more than I expected. Then, one stormy night, as thunder rumbled over Bregan and rain hammered the roof like angry fists, a pounding echoed at my door. I froze, spoon halfway to my mouth from a meager bowl of gruel. Who would venture out in this deluge? Cautiously I unlatched the door, the wind whipping it open to reveal a drenched figure on the threshold. Marek. Not in her chieftain's armor, not with her axe or guards, just her, cloaked in a simple woolen wrap now sodden and clinging, her black braids plastered to her face. Water streamed down her green skin, pooling at her feet. Her eyes blazed with a mix of fury and something deeper, hurt, perhaps. Edric! She growled, stepping inside without invitation, her bulk filling the room. The door slammed shut behind her, cutting off the storm's howl. I stood, my heart slamming against my ribs. Marek! What are you— Your letter, she interrupted, her voice low and thunderous. She pulled the crumpled parchment from her cloak, holding it up like evidence in a trial. You think you can decide for me? End this with words on paper? You have no right. Her tusks flashed as she spoke, and for a moment I saw the warrior chieftain, the one who commanded respect and fear. But beneath it, her hands trembled slightly, betraying the vulnerability she'd shared only with me. I was trying to protect you, I shot back, my own anger rising. Your clan despises me. I'm a joke to them, a weak human leeching off your status. Staying would only drag you down, make you look foolish. I can't be the reason you lose respect, she laughed, a bitter sound that echoed off the walls. Protect me? I don't need your protection, Edric. I've faced raids, beasts, and betrayals. What I need is someone who stands with me, not runs because of whispers. She stepped closer, the rain dripping from her cloak onto the floorboards. Do you think I'm blind to the risks? I chose you knowing the cost. But you flee at the first real storm. Her words cut deep, stirring the fears I'd buried. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice cracking. The room felt smaller, the brazier's faint glow casting long shadows. Scared I'm not enough for you. Not strong like your warriors, not worthy of a chieftain. What if they're right? What if I'm just a temporary fix for your loneliness and one day you realize I'm holding you back? Marek's expression softened, the anger giving way to something raw. She reached out, her large hand gripping my arm, not roughly, but with a steady warmth that grounded me. I'm scared too, she confessed, her voice dropping to a whisper. Scared of leading alone, of failing my clan, of opening my heart only to have it shattered. But I chose to face that fear with you because with you, I don't have to be the unbreakable chieftain. I can be Marek, the one who doubts, who needs someone to share the weight. The rain pounded relentlessly outside, mirroring the turmoil in my chest. I looked into her golden eyes, seeing not just the powerful leader, but the woman who'd bared her soul to me time and again. In that moment, the doubts cracked. I pulled her into an embrace, our first true one, her wet cloak soaking through my shirt, her arms enveloping me with a strength that felt like home rather than intimidation. I'll stay, I murmured against her shoulder. We'll face it together. The judgments, the fears, all of it. She held me tighter, her breath warm on my neck. Then promise me, no more running. We stand or fall as one. We talked through the night, the storm raging outside as we laid bare our insecurities. By dawn, as the rain eased to a drizzle, we'd forged a new vow, not of marriage, but of commitment. We'd confront the world's scorn head-on, building our bond not despite our differences, but because of them. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with more trials, but for the first time, I felt ready to walk it, not as a nobody, but as her equal. A year had passed since that stormy night when Marek stormed into my life, literally, and we chose to stand together against the doubts that had nearly torn us apart. Looking back, it felt like a lifetime compressed into seasons of growth, challenges, and quiet victories. We didn't rush into marriage like some fairy tale couple swept up in passion. Instead, we built our bond deliberately, brick by brick, until it was strong enough to weather any storm. When the day finally came, our wedding was simple, held in a small glade on the outskirts of Bregan, where human and orc lands met. No grand feasts or elaborate rituals, just a handful of witnesses, a few of my dock friends, some of Marek's trusted clanmates, and an elder shaman who blended human vows of fidelity with orc oaths of shared strength. There were no promises of heirs or eternal perfection. We bound ourselves with words of choice, acknowledging our flaws and committing to face them as one. Marek wore a simple leather tunic embroidered with runes from her clan, and I donned a new cloak she'd helped me sew. As we exchanged rings, hers a band of quarried stone etched with my initials, mine a forged iron loop with her mark, the weight of the moment settled over us like a warm blanket. It wasn't about becoming whole, it was about choosing to be incomplete together. Life after the vows settled into a rhythm that blended our worlds in ways I'd never imagined. With Marek's support and a loan from her clan's quarries, I reopened my father's forge in a modest shed near the city markets. It wasn't much at first. A single anvil, a bellows I'd repaired myself, and shelves stocked with scrap metal bartered from traders. But Marek would visit often, her presence drawing curious eyes from passers-by. She'd haul in heavy ore from her hills, her strength making light work of loads that would have broken my back. In return, I'd teach her the finer points of smithing, how to temper steel just right or shape a blade with precision. "Your hands are made for creation," she'd say, watching me work the hammer with a focus that made me feel seen. And when the day ended, I'd cook for us. Hearty stews with herbs from the market or bread baked fresh in the forge's dying embers. Marek, for all her warrior prowess, took to it surprisingly well. chopping vegetables with the same efficiency she wielded her axe. Our home became a sanctuary straddling our differences. We moved into a sturdy cottage on the edge of Bregan, close enough to the markets for my work and the hills for her clan duties. It had a stone foundation she'd insisted on reinforcing herself, and wooden beams I'd planed smooth. Morning started with her rising at dawn to patrol her lands or settle disputes among her people, while I'd stoke the forge fires. The evenings were ours. She'd return with game from a hunt, and I'd have supper waiting. We'd eat by the hearth, sharing the day's trials, Merrick venting about an elder's stubbornness, me complaining about a stingy customer. There were no children to fill the rooms with laughter. Marek's condition remained unchanged, a quiet truth we'd accepted from the start. But we built a family in other ways, through the choices we made daily, the support we offered without question. When clan tensions flared, whispers of the human weakening our blood, I'd stand by her side at meetings offering words where her fists couldn't. And when my insecurities resurfaced, doubts whispering that I was still a nobody, she'd pull me close, her arms a fortress. "You are enough for me," she'd murmur, her voice a rumble that chased the shadows away. Of course, it wasn't without hardships. The world didn't magically accept us. Human merchants sometimes shortchanged me, muttering about orc lovers, and Marek's clan pushed back against her softening under my influence. There were arguments, heated ones, where I'd storm out into the rain, or she'd retreat to the hills for a night. But we always returned, apologies exchanged in the quiet hours, learning that love wasn't about avoiding conflict but navigating it together. Through it all, our bond deepened, rooted in the honesty that had drawn us together from the beginning. We weren't a perfect match by anyone's standards, no epic tales of conquest or fairy tale romance. We were just two people who'd been overlooked, who'd chosen each other despite the odds. As I sit here now, a year on, watching Marek sharpen her dagger by the window while rain patters outside, just like that night she came to me, I reflect on how far we've come. Not everyone is born with everything, wealth, strength, or the perfect path laid out. But everyone has the right to choose who walks beside them, who shares the burdens and the joys. Marek and I aren't heroes or legends. We're survivors who found solace in each other. No longer the rejected boy in the tavern or the isolated chieftain, we've become partners, facing whatever comes next. The future holds uncertainties, more judgments, perhaps even greater trials. But with her by my side, I know we're ready. Because in choosing to stay, we've left behind the loneliness that once defined us. And that's enough. More than enough.